The presidential race in Ecuador will head to an October runoff after neither candidate from yesterday's special election got enough support. According to the Associated Press, leftist candidate Luisa Gonzalez, who has been the frontrunner going into the elections, held around 33% of the vote. Former lawmaker Daniel Noboa, who had never placed above fifth in the polls, received 24%. Candidates needed at least 50%, though, to declare victory. Meanwhile, in Guatemala, anti-corruption candidate Bernardo Arévalo was voted as president with 58% of the vote yesterday. So joining us now to discuss these two elections is Will Freeman. He's a fellow for Latin America Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. I'm really glad you're here. I think that, a lot of us had not been paying attention to what was happening in both of these countries until we had this assassination of a candidate in Ecuador. So let's start there. Who are the two candidates heading into Ecuador's election? Tell us more about them.
Right. Well, this election in Ecuador really looks more like continuity than change. We're seeing the same political divides that have characterized the country now for years. On the one hand, there's Luisa Gonzalez, who comes from the left populist party of ex-president Rafael Correa. And on the other side, we have Daniel Noboa, who is the son of Ecuador's richest man. He comes from a family of business tycoons. That's the same division we've seen for years in Ecuador. It's led to a lot of polarization in the country. I'm afraid that we're going to see a sort of rehashing of that as we head now into an October runoff. And we might not see addressed this terrible issue of crime, which, as you had mentioned, recently claimed the life of one of the leading candidates, Fernando Villavicencio.
And was it surprising that there wasn't a candidate with an outright win?
No, that wasn't surprising. That tends to be the pattern. What we're seeing in both countries, but especially in Ecuador and all over Latin America for that matter, is really a fragmentation of the vote. Voters don't have strong attachments to political parties in Latin America. And so instead, it tends to be things that happen in the last final weeks or months of presidential campaigns that really steer voters towards one candidate or the other. I didn't expect anyone to have a consolidated 40 or 50%.
And let's talk about the assassination of candidate Fernando Villavicencio, Vicencio, rather. What made him a target? What are the other candidates saying about this? What are they promising to do if they end up winning the election?
Well, what made him a target was that he was probably the most outspoken voice against corruption and crime on the campaign trail. And I would argue he had a more comprehensive plan for taking on the gangs and mafias that are increasingly dominating the country. We've seen other candidates promise independent investigations. The current government of Guillermo Lasso, the incumbent president, has also promised that. What concerns me is, unfortunately, as I mentioned, we've seen this, kind of traditional left populist and a right businessman candidate make it to the finish line. Neither of them have particularly compelling messages on crime. That's the main issue Ecuador has to solve right now.
Okay, let's talk about Guatemala. Tell me about Bernardo Arévalo. Why did voters choose him? What are the issues that they thought he could address?
Well, voters chose him by a resounding margin because they're fed up with corruption and graft in Guatemala. The same political class has been governing the country for almost 40 years. You see the same recycled politicians, parties that come in and out of office. But that don't really represent ideas. They don't really put forward policy plans. Often they buy their way to the finish line. Arevalo's campaign was completely different. He ran this thing on a shoestring budget. Most of his team, most of his party are in their 20s and 30s. It's really an encouraging story of change where we see this resounding victory for an anti-corruption figure who seems intent on doing things right.
That's really interesting. Will Freeman, especially the ages, when I make the comparison to what we see here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.